This is Valerie.
And this is Jacinta.
And you're listening to Catholics, a Catholic podcast by millennials for millennials.
Thanks for tuning in. Hi, friends, and welcome back to the podcast. It's Jacinta here and Valerie, and it's good to be back on. You might notice that I have a bit of a scratchy voice. It's not my typical voice. I don't know what happened. I have just...
Were you just partying too hard?
I was in Philadelphia visiting friends for the 4th of July, and I think I had one too many cigarettes. But
all honesty here, people.
Too much honesty.
All honesty.
It's a judgment-free zone.
Also, I wish you could see Jacinta right now. She's leaning towards the phone as if
it's not picking up
yeah.
the audio. I know. I'm like,
she's very loud in the first part of this episode. It's
that
because
is why.
She spoke directly into the microphone.
Here we go. This is a true statement. So let's just jump right in. So we're going to do some fun facts about us. Things that you might not even know about us, which you're still getting to know us. So there's a lot. For me, I kind of lost count of how many states that I've been to. I've been to up to, I think, 40 states. And my goal is to get all 50 states by the time that I'm not even 50.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, I lived in Portland. So I got like the Washington area and like driving from Oklahoma to Portland. And then I lived in Philly, so getting all that East Coast area. And then just when I was in Philly, I was traveling for work. So I got all of those states up there. And then I just lived in Colorado. And, like, me and my friends would go on random trips to, like, Utah and Arizona. And then I went to Cali in 2017. So I've covered a lot of terrain.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
So it's been fun. I just don't have, like, Louisiana and, like, the Carolinas. I don't know if it counts if you get to the airport, though.
No.
Okay.
No.
You have to touch the ground?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about airports later. I have a really good story about that.
Jacinta, I forgot my fun fact.
What?
I forgot it. What was my fun fact gonna be?
Oh, for a second, I thought you were gonna say you forgot to hit the record button.
No, it's recording. I just can't remember what I just told you 2 seconds ago what my fun fact was.
You can't touch your toes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So I am... not young. Well, not...
What?
I'm not a child.
If you're not young, then
I'm in
old.
my 20s. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And up until about 3 months ago, I could never touch my toes. Like, physically couldn't reach. Like, it hurt just to bend at the waist because my legs had no elasticity.
I find that hard to believe since you're so athletic.
Yeah, no, I could not. I have no flexibility. I couldn't touch my toes at all. But I started stretching and, like, doing yoga and stuff, so.
Wow.
3 months ago.
That's amazing, Valerie.
I found out I could touch my toes.
Wow.
It was a big day.
Life hacks.
It was a really big day.
That's
you wouldn't
amazing.
think, but, something little that, I don't know, I just was like, oh, my hard work's paying off, like.
That's, like, the best.
I've been doing all this stretching and yoga and stuff, and now I can, like, see that I can physically, like, bend over further.
That's awesome.
And touch my toes. So, anyway.
Yeah, I was at Byzantine Mass with
us.
my friends, I guess it was, like, last month, and before I moved out here, but there's a lot of touching of your toes during Byzantine Mass. That's they worship with their whole body, and so there's a lot of bending over, and so as we were, like, doing the liturgy, I was like, this is actually feels really good to stretch.
Yeah, I kind of want to go now.
Yeah, we should both go. I don't know if there's Byzantine Mass around here. I heard you have to drive far, but it would be worth it.
Cool. Well, that's interesting.
New
and
experience.
I can touch my toes now, so, like,
exactly.
Be great.
So it'd be great. You'd fit right in.
I trained for Byzantine Mass.
See, everything happens for a reason. It's great.
All right, Jacinta, do you want to tell our two fans that we have out there?
I think there's more than two. There's that really tall guy. You know who you are.
He counts as two people?
Yeah, because he's just so big.
Okay.
I don't know. All right. So our topic of choice today is growth in uncomfy situations. And I love this just because I feel like it just rings true and, like, is so close to home in my life.
It does to everyone, for sure. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. So Pope Benedict XVI says that the world offers you comfort, but you are not made for comfort. You were made for greatness.
Yeah.
And so I just love that quote just because it's so true. And I feel like anytime I have gotten comfortable in my life, God has called me out of that comfort and
that's
into
so true.
discomfort.
That's so true.
Definitely. So that is going to be our topic of choice today. And it's kind of interesting because I've had this situation happen in my life just because I've moved to St. Louis, and that's kind of uncomfortable being somewhere new.
Totally.
But I've moved to so many different places and it's just like, it's gotten easier to do that. But aside from moving, which is like you find yourself in this community and that you love, and then God calls you out of that, which just recently happened to me, which is so hard to say bye to people you love and then embrace a new community. Besides that, I recently had a situation which was very uncomfortable, just recently coming back from the Philadelphia airport.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Share your growth from the Philadelphia airport.
Oh my gosh, I still think I'm recovering from that growth.
Oh, definitely are.
So, this was Saturday, and my friend Caitlin had dropped me off at the airport at like 3:50. My flight was supposed to leave at 5:50, so I was like, sweet, I have plenty of time to get there. And as she's like dropping me off, we get like an Amber Alert, or like an alert on our phone that there's like a tornado warning. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in Pennsylvania, like, tornado warning? That never happens. And I'm like, this is not Oklahoma, like, what are we doing? What are you doing, Mr. Weatherman? So she was like, I hope your flight's going to be okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be totally fine. Like, it's going to be fine. And so I get into the airport, I make it past security, and I'm like, all right, cool, I can just relax. Like, up here, I don't have to worry about, like, missing my flight, because...
Right, you're there, you're checked in, like, it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. I had my ride to come back to St. Louis.
Yeah,
my aunt was going to pick me up. We were going to go see fireworks with the family. It was going to be great. And until the first flight was delayed 40 minutes, my flight was delayed 40 minutes. I got the alert on my phone that it's been delayed till 6:30, and I was like, that's weird. Maybe the plane just isn't on time. And then 6:30 rolls around and it's delayed again. And then again and again and literally again. And so I'm talking to this guy next to me as I'm charging my phone.
So what time is it now?
Oh gosh, it was like 7:40. And so I'm like, I'm going to get in past 9. I'm going to miss the fireworks. That was like...
Right, that
the
was
least of my worries.
But right then, it was your biggest worry.
Yeah, exactly.
Because little did you know.
Right, yeah, little did I know that it would be canceled. And so I was talking to this guy next to me who had just gotten back from Budapest and, like, all of these places, like, traveling 6 months in Europe. And I was like, I think they might cancel it. And he goes, if they cancel it, I will cry. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're so honest.
Oh, no.
Because he was going home to surprise his sister. He was supposed to fly back a week later. I got to know this guy pretty well because our flight was canceled.
What time was it canceled?
8 o'clock.
8 p.m.?
Yeah, after waiting 2 hours.
Right, 2 hours of delays. Your flight's canceled.
It was finally canceled. And this guy did not cry. I was there. And so we walk into the line to rebook
your flight.
Yeah. To rebook the flight, and we stood there for like 4 hours till like 1 a.m. to rebook the flight.
Oh.
And while we were standing in line, this lady that we became friends with, good old Gloria, she was checking on her phone, and she received an email that her flight was booked for Monday. So this whole time, we thought that there weren't any flights going out on Sunday, which was the next day. And so we were like scheming, the three of us who had just met, neither of us knew each other, scheming to rent
How
a
to
car
get home faster.
And drive to St. Louis.
Drive to St. Louis.
Yeah.
Were they all going to St. Louis?
Yeah, all of them are St. Louisans. So, but we didn't need to do that. We got a flight and ended up staying the night at the airport, and it was just like a big ordeal.
So your total of 18 hours in the airport?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's an uncomfortable situation.
That was so uncomfortable. But like I had been visiting my friend before, and her mom is like super spiritual, and she like gave me advice like when things aren't going your way to like praise God. So I was literally like praising God the whole time.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I felt like he really blessed me in that situation because I made a friend, and we hung out literally the entire
all night
time.
in the airport.
Yeah, all night, and we had a beer at like 9 a.m. to celebrate the fact that we were going home.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I introduced him to Yingling, which is like a Philadelphia local beer. So he had a
Yingling is?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you guys not have that here?
No, I've heard of it. That's why I just didn't know it was from Philly.
Yeah, it's a Philly beer. So, yeah.
So growth came of that, and good things came of that.
Good things came of that. Detachment, and just like, all right, Lord, like, this is all you. Like, you're in control.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
So the big thing I got out of that was detachment, to be honest. Because, like, I can be a control freak, and then sometimes you can take for granted, like, oh, I'm flying here, I'm flying there, like, this is great, but it's like, God's like, not everything's always going to go as smoothly as you want it to go,
right.
And you're not just going to be able to go home and watch fireworks with your family, like, I'm going to throw a wrench in your plans.
Right, yeah, he's funny sometimes, that guy.
So, but it was good, I was uncomfortable, I made a new friend who maybe I wouldn't have talked to if I weren't in this situation, and good
and now airports are going to seem like a breeze if you're there any less than 18 hours.
Exactly. I'll be like, wait, what? Did I miss something? Did I do
I was
it
only
right?
here for 2 hours? Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Quickest airport trip ever.
So, yeah, that was my uncomfy situation. But now I'm terrified because I have to fly to DC next week. And I'm like, oh, gosh. Please, Lord. Please just let it be an easy flight.
# more growth.
Yeah, seriously. I don't like flying. Ugh, it's rough. It's rough. Yeah.
That's an uncomfortable situation for sure.
Yeah. What about you? Have you been in any uncomfy situations lately?
Recently, I don't know, like, a big general uncomfortable situation for me is, like, I'm a people pleaser, and I don't like making people, like, upset, or I don't want to upset them or disappoint them or make them mad. Mm-hmm. So if I have to have a conversation with someone and I'm afraid I'm going to make them mad, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to approach the situation. So that's been a really big struggle for me within, like, the past couple of years. Like, I've started a new full-time job after I graduated, so, like, there's always uncomfortable, like, conversations you have to have with, you know, coworkers or your boss, you know, you kind of, like, and you're just afraid, like, how are they going to react to it? But I think I've grown through that. Not that I necessarily have gotten any better at it, because I still am very unconfident and uncomfortable when it comes to having those conversations.
Yeah.
But it's made me more self-aware. Like, I don't want to ever make other people uncomfortable. Like, I've become more self-aware of, I want to be very approachable. That if someone has to come to me and talk about something, I want to know that person to know that I'm going to receive it well, even if it's something hard. Does that make sense?
No, totally. So, like, you want to be liked. Like,
yeah.
Everybody wants to be liked.
Right, and I think the growth for me isn't that I've gotten better at what is uncomfortable, but I've just learned and become more self-aware through that growth.
Yeah.
So,
awareness is, like,
I think,
really
yeah. So I think God kind of has said, like, if this makes you uncomfortable, think of, like, other people, you know, and, like, it's making them uncomfortable too. So how can you alleviate other people's uncomfort? So
right. Yeah. No, that's huge. And then the thing you mentioned with the self-awareness, I think we could all grow a little bit more in self-awareness.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big one for me. Is just, I don't like having those hard conversations. You know, whatever it may be. I mean, there's a million things. I think we can all think of times that you're like, oh man, I had to talk to someone at work about this, or I had to talk to a friend about this, or my family, or something, like.
Especially when it would just be easier to avoid the situation
altogether. You just want to avoid it altogether. And
don't
tell me I haven't done that. We all do it a lot. And I wish I could just tell you, like, it gets easier. And for some people it might. But for me personally, definitely. The growth hasn't come in doing it. It has gotten easier. It's, like I said, the self-awareness of making sure that I'm approachable, so that if someone has to come to me, they aren't worried about having that to have a hard conversation with me.
Totally. No, I get that. Yeah,
that's a big one for me,
for sure.
Comfort's a hard thing for me, like, because I don't push my comfort zone very often. Like, I want to stay comfortable. You know, you kind of just get stuck in this, I'm okay, I'm, like, good enough, I'm happy with where I'm at, like, I'm doing enough, like, why do I have to be uncomfortable? You know, why do I have to push myself outside of that comfort zone? So I think that gets super tricky sometimes.
Yeah, and you were mentioning that even in episode 1, and just because I know you now, just how, like, you would rather just not, like, go out of that.
I just rather not push the bubble, rather not push the limits. I just kind of want to sit back and, like, I know who I am, I know what I'm comfortable with, and I just want to stay within those walls. And I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, totally.
Especially a lot of introverts, you know. That
I'm still trying to figure it out with your, I don't think you're introverted, but then you're an introverted extrovert, I think.
Really? Because I would say I'm an extroverted introvert, but...
Extroverted introvert.
because
that makes more sense.
Because I have to recharge. That's what I need to be by myself. But I'm extroverted when I'm out.
People.
Yeah, totally. So,
yeah.
Anyways.
No, I totally get that. I definitely feel like I've been pushed out of my comfort zone so much that I'm just like okay with being uncomfortable. But then God will put me in those radical situations like I was in where it's like, whoa, this is like so uncomfortable. Like with the flight and just like the willingness to like drive across the country with 3 strangers.
Right, totally.
To get back home. Because I didn't want to miss work on Monday, which I'm sure my boss totally would have been okay with. But like, I feel like as soon as I get comfortable, God calls me out of that. And I especially remember this when I started working with Generation Life. It's a group on the East Coast that I was doing pro-life and chastity talks with. God called me to leave my job at a law firm in Oklahoma where I had a paycheck to fundraise my salary for the first year that I was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable.
And to speak about chastity, which is not really a popular topic.
It's not a comfortable topic.
No, it's not. And so that required like radical trust, like the whole thing. And I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing, I did this thing, but because in the moment I was like doubting the call. Right. I was doubting it in the moment. I was like, man, I kind of suck at this. Like, are you really calling me, Lord?
Right, because you're like, I'm uncomfortable. Maybe this isn't what he wants. Like, you try to convince yourself. You try to say, oh, no, it's not what God wants. But really, it's just not what you want.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Those feelings, like the insecure feelings and like all of that stuff takes over in the moment. And you're like, are you sure you want me to do this? Because I can go back to doing what I was doing before. So just like a few tips to like persevere in those times is just like, well, number one, I just said it, perseverance and praying and persistence. 'Cause that's what I, did. It basically took me like at least 1 year to totally feel like while I was doing my public speaking up and down the East Coast, it took me at least a year to feel like, okay, Lord, like confident in that call. So, like,
you have to be patient with yourself.
He didn't give that, like, right away. He wants us to know that we trust him. Otherwise, we wouldn't really need him. We would just rely on ourselves. And that's, like, not what we're called to do.
Right. I think that's the big point is, like, we are called to trust God. Mm-hmm. And when we're comfortable, if we're comfortable where we're at, we, like, don't really need God. Or at least we tell ourselves that, right? You get so comfortable that you forget that you need God. Think of when do you pray the most? Like, when do you really sit down and go, wow, I need to pray about this? It's about an uncomfortable situation. Yeah. It's not when you're like, wow, I'm so comfortable. Let me sit and thank God about how comfortable I am. Sure, we do that sometimes, but more often than not, we think about how uncomfortable we are and we turn to God in those uncomfortable times. Right. And we need to. Like, that's what we need to turn to him more in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not that I'm saying God wants your life to be miserable, because he doesn't. But he knows that you're not always going to be happy. You're not always going to be perfectly comfortable in what you're doing.
Yeah. And it goes back to that Pope Benedict quote, like, the world offers you comfort, but you're not made for comfort, you were made for greatness. Yes. There's discomfort in becoming great at something.
Right, totally.
And it's just like that scripture passage where God is, like, melding us into gold. He's, like, refining us. Like, that refining is going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, totally. It is.
Yeah. So I totally agree with that. And I think that God uses that. And it's not just like a reflection on us, like, oh, well, I did this thing and like God helped me through it. It's like, yeah, that's great. But the thing is that it glorifies God. Just like
it's
the
not
story
about us.
Of David
it's not
with
about
him
us.
Taking down Goliath like that because he looked small in stature, which I can relate to because I'm tiny. I always root for the underdog, but because of that. But he was small in stature, but yet he took down Goliath. And it's like, that wasn't a reflection of like, oh, David's so great. It's like, no, God is so good and God is big.
And David wasn't comfortable doing that. Like, he had to step out of his comfort zone to do it.
Right.
All the other soldiers stayed in their tents comfortable.
Exactly.
And that's...
And sometimes we can stay in our tents and be like, I would rather avoid it.
Right, yeah. So there's like a book I read recently. Mm-hmm. It is called Goliath Must Fall. And... the author, whose name's Louis Giglio, he's a big Christian speaker, and he talks a lot about like this. Like, he was the one who kind of showed me that, like, you have to come out of the tent. Like, the soldiers had to come out of the tent or no, excuse me, the soldiers didn't want to come out of the tents to fight
Right.
Goliath. They stayed in the comfort of their tents, like, and you have to come out of it. And so I just think that's a really good, like, way that he put that. And that's just one biblical example of
So
how
many.
you have to be. You can't always be comfortable, you know?
Yeah, and then we see what happens when you run away from God, like Jonah.
Right.
He was supposed to go to Nineveh, but he went
But he was like, nope, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and then he got swallowed up into a whale,
Yeah.
and we know the rest of the story.
Right.
Yeah. So we know what happens when we don't respond to that call. It's like the repercussions are worse.
Right,
Yeah.
totally. It ultimately, because your life isn't about you. The world tells us you should be comfortable. Do what you want. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you feel good. It's all about you. Mm-hmm. If it makes you happy, that's all that matters.
Right, you do you, man.
You do you,
man.
man.
You do you, bro.
And there are times that you have to go, okay, I need to think about myself here.
And take self-care.
And take care of yourself.
Yeah.
There's a totally fine line, but it isn't all about you all of the time.
Right.
And as Christians, we know that, but we still sometimes forget it, like, and forget to act like we know that.
Right. It's all about him.
It's all about him. That's
The big
right.
man
The
with the
big
plan.
man. The big man with a plan. That's right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we all want to be comfortable, but it's just not. God doesn't call us to be comfortable all the time.
Right. But he doesn't call us to be uncomfortable all the time either.
No, definitely doesn't. There's a fine line.
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
seasons for sure.
Yeah. Because I don't want people to listen to this and be like, oh my gosh, I'm not comfortable, so now I'm gonna like go do all of these penances and really like
Right. But it is good to look at your life and go, am I sitting in complacency and am I sitting in my comfort rather than listening to what God wants me to do? Mm-hmm. You know, if you really sit and think of things that make you uncomfortable,
like
God might be calling you to some of those things. And some of them he might not. You know, there might be a reason that you're not comfortable at public speaking. Maybe it's because God doesn't want you to do it. But you might also, on the flip side, like Jacinta wasn't comfortable with it and God was calling her to that. So you still have to discern that call.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, it can go both ways.
Definitely.
Just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean you should or shouldn't do it. Like, that's not an end-all, be-all to that.
Yeah, you have to really
discernment,
discern
but-
the situation and what God's calling you to in the moment.
Yeah, but we get too comfortable. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So give us that Pope Benedict quote one more time.
All right, is the world offers you comfort, but you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness.
For greatness, folks.
Yeah.
You were made for greatness. Never forget it.
Mm-hmm. And when we align our will with God's, that's whenever we become great. Because we become the person that he is trying to create us to be. Or that he created us to be.
And in those times, even when we're uncomfortable, we will be comfortable knowing that we're doing God's will. There's comfort just in knowing you're doing God's will, even if you're actually uncomfortable doing it.
There's like an inner
Does that make
peace.
sense?
Oh, yeah, it totally makes sense. There's like
there's that deep inner peace of I'm doing God's will, even though this is making me uncomfortable to do.
Right.
In this minute. There's the peace that lasts for longer than just that uncomfortable situation.
No, I totally get that.
And that's heavenly peace. Mm-hmm. So.
And that's what we're made for.
Yep.
So
that's what we're made for.
Yeah, I know, like, in my life, even being called to St. Louis, I didn't really want to come out here. No offense.
Yeah, no, I'm not offended.
Okay. I
Don't
was
always
just
want
like,
to stay.
I know. I'm telling you, check out Denver. You look like you belong in Denver. I've been telling you that since I met you. Yeah. But I did not want to come out here, and I was comfortable in Denver. I was comfortable with my friends, comfortable with my community. Great Catholic community out there. And I remember whenever I was offered this job, I had till like Wednesday to say yes to it. And I just kind of put it on the back burner because I was like, I don't want to go to St. Louis. I don't want to go to the Midwest. But then all of a sudden I was just flooded with this anxiety, this sense of being uncomfortable. And I don't know where that came from. So I called my friend who worked for Students for Life out in Denver. And then I called my spiritual director. And as soon as I like hashed it out with them, I was like, oh, but I don't want to go to St. Louis. And my thing was like, I kept telling my friends, there's no people in St. Louis. There's no people there. Well, I'm surprised because there are people here and they're really cool. But it was just such a blind thing to me.
Yeah.
You know, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into.
You don't.
And as soon as I said yes, it took me 3 days to say yes. Yep. And as soon as I said yes, it was like that anxiety went away.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, Lord. All right, here we go.
Yep.
More adventures.
So bask in that uncomfortableness, guys. Just discern it well.
Yeah.
Discern where you should be uncomfortable.
And we'll be praying for you in the meantime. And we hope that you'll be praying for us, too.
Yes, please do.
As we uncomfortably hash out this podcast.
Wow, I didn't know we were that uncomfortable about it. Anyway.
All right.
It was good talking with you all about uncomfortable. And now I'm feeling uncomfortable because I never know how to wrap these things up. So.
Oh, man, let's just end the show.
In the show.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.